The red warning lights flashed across the command center of Velkari Prime. Hana pressed her long blue fingers against the smooth metal surface of the control panel. Her people were dying. Every few minutes, another report came in from the outer colonies. The Gorthak Empire was destroying everything in their path. "Elder Hana, we have lost contact with Velkari Station 7, said Nex, her young assistant. His voice shook with fear. That makes 12 stations this week. Hana closed her large, dark eyes. The Velkari had always been a peaceful people. They spent their time studying the stars, creating beautiful art, and sharing knowledge with anyone who would listen. They had no weapons. They had no armies. When the Gorthak Empire first appeared at their borders 3 months ago, the Velkari thought they could talk to them. They thought they could find a peaceful solution. They were wrong. The Gorthak wanted their worlds. They wanted the rare crystals that grew in Velkari soil. They wanted the perfect farming planets that fed millions of Velkari families. And they did not care how many Velkari died to get them. How long until they reached the homeworld? Hana asked. Nex looked at his screen. His hands were shaking. 3 days, Elder. Maybe less. Hana walked to the great window that looked out over Velkari Prime's capital city. Millions of her people lived down there. Children played in the crystal gardens. Artists painted beautiful pictures of their world. Scientists worked to understand the mysteries of space. All of them trusted her to keep them safe, but she could not. Elder Hana, said Commander Wrath, the head of their small defense force, we have maybe 50 ships that can fight. The Gorthak have thousands. We cannot win this battle. Hana knew this. Every military expert in the galaxy had told them the same thing. The Velkari were too weak, too peaceful, too few. The Gorthak Empire would crush them like insects. What about the other worlds? Hana asked. The hegemony, the advanced council? Surely they will help us. Wrath's face fell. I sent messages to every major power in the galaxy, Elder. The hegemony said our conflict is not their problem. The advanced council said they cannot risk war with the Gorthak over a few small worlds. The Trade Federation offered to buy our art collection before the Gorthak destroy it. Hana felt something break inside her chest. The galaxy was full of powerful civilizations, worlds with weapons that could destroy stars, ships that could travel across space faster than light, technology beyond imagination. But none of them would help her people. There is one more option, said Nex quietly. Everyone in the room looked at him. The young Velkari's face was pale, but his eyes were determined. The emergency protocol, he said. We could send a message to every world in the galaxy, not just the major powers, everyone, Hana frowned. You mean the primitive worlds, the ones that have barely discovered space travel? Yes, Elder. All of them. Maybe someone will answer. Commander Wrath shook his head. What could a primitive world do against the Gorthak Empire? Most of them do not even have weapons that work in space. I know, said Nex. But what else can... We do? We are going to die anyway. At least this way. We try everything. Hana stared out at her beautiful city again. In 3 days, it would be burning. The Gorthak would kill everyone. They would strip the crystals from the ground and turn her homeworld into a mining operation. Everything her people had built over thousands of years would be gone. Do it, she said softly. Elder? Wrath asked. Send the message, Hana said louder. Send it to every world we can reach. Tell them who we are. Tell them what is happening to us. Ask for help. But Elder, even if someone answers, how could they reach us in time? Most primitive species take months to travel between star systems. Hana turned back to her people. I do not know. But I will not let my people die without trying everything. Send the message. Nex nodded and began working at his console. His fingers moved quickly across the controls. I am programming the message. to translate into every known language in the galaxy. It will take about an hour to reach the closest systems." "What should we tell them?" asked Wrath. Hana thought for a moment. "Tell them the truth. We are a peaceful people. We have done nothing wrong. The Gorthak Empire is coming to destroy us. We need help. We do not have much time." As Nex worked, other Velkari in the command center began preparing for the worst. They were sending evacuation orders to the outer cities. They were moving their most important art and knowledge to hidden storage areas. They were doing everything they could to save some part of their civilization. But they all knew it was probably too late. "Message ready, Elder," said Nex. "Send it," Hana ordered. The message went out across the galaxy like a wave of light. It traveled to thousands of worlds, to advanced civilizations that had already refused to help, to medium-level societies that were too afraid of the Gorthak to get involved, and to small, primitive worlds that most people had forgotten existed. On the edge of a small solar system, the message reached a blue and green world called Earth. Lieutenant Commander Jiho was working the night shift at the Deep Space Communication Array. It was a boring job most of the time. He listened to radio signals from space, looking for anything unusual. Most nights, there was nothing but the background noise of the universe. But tonight was different. At exactly 11:47 p.m., every screen in the communication center lit up with incoming data. Jiho had never seen anything like it. The signal was coming. From deep space, farther than any human ship had ever traveled. "What is that?" asked Corporal Lee, who was working at the next station. "I do not know," Jiho said. He started recording everything. "But it is definitely artificial. Someone is trying to communicate with us." The signal was complex. It had patterns and structures that looked like language, but not like any language Jiho had ever seen. There were mathematical formulas mixed in with what looked like star charts and images. "Should we call the general?" Lee asked. "Yes," Jiho said. "And call Dr. Mira from the language department. If this is what I think it is, we are going to need her." As Jiho worked to record and analyze the strange signal, he felt his heart beating faster. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. They had been exploring space for over a century, but they had never found any proof of other intelligent life. Until now. The signal kept coming for over an hour. When it finally stopped, Jiho had recorded terabytes of data. He looked at the basics, patterns his computer had found, and felt a chill run down his spine. The message was definitely from aliens, and from what he could tell, they were asking for help. Dr. Mira arrived at the communication center 2 hours later. She was the best language expert in the Earth Defense Force, and she had been working on theoretical alien communication for most of her career. But she had never expected to actually encounter one. "Show me what you have," she said. Jiho played back the recording and showed her the pattern analysis. Mira studied the data for a long time without speaking. Her face was serious and focused. "This is incredible," she finally said. "The mathematical base is similar to ours, but the linguistic structure is completely alien. Give me 6 hours and I think I can get a basic translation." "How can you be sure?" Jiho asked. Mira pointed to part of the recording. "See this section? That repeats every few minutes? Those are numbers. Coordinates, I think. And this part here looks like a distress call. They are using mathematical concepts to express emotional ideas, desperation, fear, hope." Jiho felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Someone out there is in trouble." "Yes," Mira said quietly, "and they are asking anyone who can hear them for help." As dawn broke over the Earth Defense Force headquarters, word of the alien message spread quickly through the military chain of command. By noon, it would reach the president. By evening, it would change the course of human history. But for now, in a small communication center on a small planet, 2 humans worked desperately to understand a cry for help from across the galaxy. Dr. Mira had not slept in 18 hours. Empty coffee cups covered her desk, and her eyes burned from staring at computer screens. But she was close to understanding the alien message. Very close. The basic structure is becoming clear, she told Lieutenant Commander Jiho, who had stayed with her through the night. They call themselves the Velkari. They are asking for help against something called the Gorthak Empire. Jiho looked over her shoulder at the translation software. How much time do they have? Mira's face went pale as she read the latest section she had decoded. According to this, the enemy will reach their homeworld in less than 3 days. Maybe 2 days now. 2 days? Jiho felt his stomach drop. That is not enough time to do anything. Wait, Mira said, typing quickly. There is more here. Star charts, population numbers. Oh no. What is it? The Velkari homeworld has over 2 billion people on it, and according to these star charts, they have already lost dozens of other worlds. This is not a war, Jiho. This is genocide. Jiho stared at the alien writing on the screen. Somewhere out there, billions of people were about to die. People who had sent a message across space hoping someone would care enough to help them. We have to tell the president, he said. 4 hours later, President Inho sat in the emergency conference room deep under the White House. Around the long table sat the most important military and political leaders on Earth. General Tay, head D of the Earth Defense Force. Admiral Suna, commander of the Space Fleet. Dr. Mira, who had worked all night to translate the alien message, and dozens of others. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, President Inho said slowly. We have received a message from an alien civilization asking for help. They are being attacked by another alien civilization, and we have less than 2 days to respond. That is correct, Mr. President, said General Tay. Dr. Mira has confirmed the translation multiple times. Admiral Suna leaned forward. Mr. President, with respect, there is nothing we can do. Our fastest ships take 6 months to reach the outer edge of our solar system. Even if we could somehow travel faster than light, we do not have weapons that could fight an interstellar war. The Admiral is right, said Secretary of Defense Park. This is unfortunate, but we cannot help people who are light years away from us. Dr. Mira spoke up. Mr. President, there is something else you should know. We detected at least 50 other civilizations that received this same message. Advanced civilizations with faster-than-light travel and powerful weapons, and, the President asked. None of them responded. The Velkari sent follow-up messages to the major galactic powers. Every single one of them refused to help. The room fell silent. President Inho felt a cold anger growing in his chest. They refused? Yes, sir. The advanced civilizations told the Velkari that their conflict was not important enough to risk a war with the Gorthak Empire. General Tai slammed his hand on the table. So they are just going to let billions of innocent people die? It appears so, Dr. Mira said quietly. President Inho stood up and walked to the large screen showing the star charts Dr. Mira had decoded. Somewhere out there, people were dying. Children were crying. Families were saying goodbye to each other. And the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy did not care. What do we know about these Velkari people? He asked. Dr. Mira pulled up her notes. From what I can translate, they are peaceful. They spend most of their time on art, science, and philosophy. They have no military to speak of. They have never attacked anyone. The Gorthak Empire wants their worlds for mining operations. And the Gorthak Empire? A military dictatorship. They have conquered dozens of worlds in the past century. They take what they want and kill anyone who resists. Admiral Suna shook her head. Mr. President, I understand how you feel, but we cannot fight aliens with technology centuries ahead of ours. It would be suicide. Would it? President Inho asked. How do we know their technology is better than ours? Sir, they have faster-than-light travel. We barely have fusion engines. But what about their weapons, their tactics, their ships? President Inho turned to face the room. Has anyone actually analyzed their military capabilities? General Tay opened a folder. We have been working on that, sir. From the data in the Velkari message, the Gorthak Empire relies heavily on standard orbital bombardment and superior numbers. Their tactics seem very conventional, meaning they overwhelm their enemies with bigger fleets and bigger guns. They do not seem to expect much resistance from the worlds they attack. President Inho sat back down. An idea was forming in his mind, a crazy, impossible idea. Dr. Mira, is it possible to send a message back to these Velkari? Yes, sir. It would take about 18 hours to reach them. Admiral Suna, how many ships do we have that could be modified for long-range combat? Admiral Suna looked confused. Sir, are you seriously considering how many ships? The Admiral checked her tablet. We have 12 deep space exploration vessels, 6 mining ships, 4 research stations that could be moved. But, sir, none of these are warships. Could they be turned into warships? Chief Engineer Bora, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. Theoretically, yes. The exploration ships have powerful engines and strong hulls. We could mount kinetic weapons on them. Maybe some of our experimental shield technology. How long would that take? To do it properly? 6 months minimum. President Inho leaned back in his chair. What if we did not do it properly? What if we did it fast and dangerous? Bora's eyes widened. Sir, you are talking about a rush job on ships that will be going into combat. That is extremely risky. More risky than letting billions of innocent people die while we do nothing? The room fell silent again. Everyone was staring at President Inho like he had lost his mind. Secretary Park spoke first. Mr. President, even if we could get ships there in time, we would be starting an interstellar war. Earth could become a target. Earth is already a target, President Inho said. If we let this happen, if we allow genocide while we have the power to stop it, what kind of people does that make us? What happens the next time someone needs help? General Tay nodded slowly. The President is right. If we do nothing now, we are telling the galaxy that Earth does not care about innocent life. But we could lose everything, Admiral Suna said. Our entire civilization could be destroyed. Our civilization will be destroyed anyway, Dr. Mira said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. I have been studying the Gorthak communications. After they finish with the Velkari, they plan to expand into new sectors. Earth is in one of those sectors. President Inho felt his anger turn cold and hard. So we can help the Velkari now and maybe have a chance to fight with allies. Or we can wait for the Gorthak to come for us when we are alone. When you put it that way, General Tay said, the choice is clear. Admiral Suna was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed. If we are going to do this, we need to do it right. The ships will need major modifications, the crews will need training, and we will need weapons. What about volunteers? President Inho asked. Sir, this is a dangerous mission. Maybe a suicide mission. We cannot order people to go. We need volunteers. General Tay smiled grimly. Mr. President, I think you will be surprised how many people volunteer when they hear what this is about, Hersidon. Inho looked around the room at the faces of his advisors. He saw fear, yes, but he also saw determination and anger. The same anger he felt at the thought of advanced civilizations standing by while genocide happened. Dr. Mira, prepare a response message to the Velkari. Tell them help is coming. Tell them to hold on. What should I tell them about our capabilities? She asked. President Inho thought for a moment. Tell them we are human. Tell them we do not abandon people who ask for our help, and tell them we are very good at fighting when we are angry. As the meeting broke up and people rushed to begin the impossible task of preparing for interstellar war, Lieutenant Commander Jiho approached President Inho. Sir, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you really think we can win? President. Inho looked at the young officer. Jiho, I have no idea if we can win, but I know we cannot lose, because if we lose, it means we did not try hard enough. 24 hours later, the human response reached Valkyrie Prime. Elder Hana stared at the translated message with tears in her large, dark eyes. Help is coming, she read aloud to her council. Hold on. For the first time in months, the Valkyrie had hope. Chief Engineer Bora had never been asked to do the impossible before. But as she stood in the main shipyard orbiting Earth, looking at 12 exploration ships that needed to become warships in less than 2 days, she realized that was exactly what President Inho was asking her to do. This is crazy, said her assistant, Engineer Kim. These ships were not built for combat. They are science vessels. Bora nodded, but her mind was already working. Crazy does not mean impossible. Look at the UES Discovery. She has a reinforced hull for asteroid mining. The UES Horizon has the most powerful engines we have ever built. The UES Pathfinder has experimental shield generators. But weapons, Chief. How do we arm ships that were never meant to fight? Bora smiled. It was not a happy smile. We get creative. Across the shipyard, hundreds of engineers and technicians were working around the clock. They had volunteered for this mission after hearing about the Valkyrie message. Many of them had families, children. They knew they might never see them again, but they also knew that somewhere in space, other families were about to die. What about the kinetic cannons from the Mars defense grid? Asked Engineer Park, joining their conversation. Too big, Bora said. They would tear these ships apart when they fired. The mining lasers from the asteroid platforms? Not powerful enough for ship-to-ship combat. Kim looked frustrated. Then what do we use? Bora was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then her eyes lit up. Rail guns. Rail guns? We have been testing electromagnetic railguns for planetary defense. They are small enough to fit on these ships, but they fire projectiles at incredible speed. In space, they would be devastating. But Chief, Park said, those railguns are still experimental. We do not know if they will work in real combat. Then, we better hope they do, Bora said, because they are the best option we have. In the command center of the shipyard, Captain Wu was meeting with the other ship commanders who had volunteered for the mission. They were the best pilots and tacticians in the Earth Defense Force. They were also signing up for what everyone knew was probably a suicide mission. The plan is simple, Captain Wu said, looking at the holographic display of the Valkyrie star system. We jump in, hit the Gorthak fleet hard and fast, and try to disrupt their attack long enough for the Valkyrie to evacuate their people. Commander Jin, captain of the UES Horizon, raised her hand. Sir, what if we cannot evacuate everyone in time? Captain Wu's face was grim. Then we buy them as much time as we can, even if it costs us everything. What about reinforcements? Asked Captain Lee of the UES Pathfinder. If things go bad, can Earth send more ships? No, Wu said simply. This is all we have. 12 ships against whatever the Gorthak Empire can throw at us. The room was quiet. Everyone understood what that meant. They were not going on a rescue mission with backup coming. They were going to fight alone, outnumbered and outgunned, with no hope of retreat. Any other questions? Wu asked. Captain Song, of the UES Explorer, spoke up. Sir, why are we doing this? I mean, really, why are we risking everything for people we have never met? Wu looked at each captain in turn. These were good people, brave people. They deserved an honest answer. Because it is the right thing to do, he said. Because if we do not help them, who will? And because someday we might need help too. I want to live in a galaxy where people answer when someone calls for help. One by one, the captains nodded. They understood. Meanwhile, in the Deep Space Communication Array, Lieutenant Commander Jiho was working with Dr. Mira to coordinate with the Velkari. They had been sending messages back and forth, sharing tactical information and trying to come up with a battle plan. "The Velkari have given us detailed scans of the Gorthak fleet," Dr. Mira said, translating the latest message. "It looks like they have about 60 ships. Most of them are heavy cruisers and battleships." Jiho felt his heart sink. 60 ships against our 12. Those are not good odds. "There is more," Dr. Mira continued reading. "The Gorthak commander is someone called Kazak. According to the Velkari, he has conquered 15 worlds without ever losing a battle." "Great," Jiho muttered. "An undefeated enemy commander with 5 times as many ships as us." Dr. Mira looked up from her translation. "Jiho, are you having second thoughts about this?" Jiho was quiet for a moment. Then he shook his head. "No, I keep thinking about something President Inho said. We cannot lose because if we lose, it means we did not try hard enough. What if trying hard enough is not enough? Then at least we tried." Back in the shipyard, Chief Engineer Bora was pushing her teams to work faster than they had ever worked before. The railguns were being mounted on the ships. New shield generators were being installed. The engines were being modified for maximum speed. "Chief," called out Engineer Yang from the UES Discovery, "we have a problem with the power systems. The railguns need more energy than the ship can generate." Bora rushed over to look at the readings. Yang was right. The railguns would drain the ship's power too quickly. "What if we reroute power from life support?" she asked. "That would work for maybe 10 minutes of combat. Then the crew would start running out of air." Bora thought quickly. "What about the emergency power cells?" "Those are meant for emergencies. Only, if we use them for weapons, we will not have any backup power if something goes wrong." "If we do not have weapons, we will not need backup power, because we will all be dead," Bora said grimly. "Install the emergency power cells as weapon batteries." As the modifications continued, word was spreading across Earth about the mission. News stations were calling it humanity's first interstellar war. Some people thought it was madness. Others thought it was heroic. But everyone agreed it would change everything. In a small apartment in Seoul, Engineer Kim's wife was watching the news with their 2 young children. "Mommy, where is Daddy going?" asked their 5-year-old daughter. Kim's wife knelt down and hugged her daughter. "Daddy is going to help some people who are in trouble." "Will he come back?" Kim's wife tried to smile. "I hope so, sweetheart. I really hope so." Similar scenes were playing out all over Earth. Families saying goodbye, parents explaining to children why mommy or daddy had to go fight monsters in space, wives and husbands trying to be brave when they did not know if they would ever see each other again. But despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, the work continued. Because somewhere out there the Velkari were counting on them. With 6 hours left before launch, Captain Wu received a message from President Inho. It was short and simple. "The eyes of Earth are on you. Make us proud." Wu looked around the bridge of the UES Unity, his flagship. His crew was young and scared, but they were ready. They had trained for this moment their entire careers, even though they never expected it to involve aliens and interstellar war. "All ships, this is Captain Wu," he said into his communicator. "Final systems check. We launch in 6 hours." One by one, the ship captains reported in. The UES Discovery was ready. The UES Horizon was ready. The UES Pathfinder was ready. All 12 ships were as ready as they could be in such a short time. Chief Engineer Bora was making her final inspections when she got a message from her daughter, who was studying engineering at university. "Mom, I am proud of you. Come home. Safe." Bora wiped away a tear and got back to work. There was still so much to do. In the Velkari system, Elder Hana was watching the approaching Gorthak fleet on her displays. They would arrive in less than 18 hours. The human ships would arrive at almost the same time if they could make the journey at all. "Elder," said her assistant Nex, "we are receiving another message from the humans." "What do they say?" Nex translated quickly. "They say to expect them in 17 hours. They also say to move all civilians to the deepest shelters possible." Hana felt a chill. "Why would they tell us to hide our people?" "I think, Elder, they are expecting a very big fight." On Earth, the countdown to launch had begun. 12 ships, 300 crew members, experimental weapons and untested modifications. It was not much to save an entire civilization, but it was what humanity had. And sometimes, what you have is enough if you refuse to give up. Captain Wu strapped himself into his command chair and looked at the stars through the bridge windows. Somewhere out there, people were depending on them. People they had never met, from a world they had never seen. "All ships," he said into his communicator. "This is it. Let us go show the galaxy what humans do when someone asks for help." The 12 ships of humanity's first interstellar fleet powered up their engines and began their journey to the stars. The 12 human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Velkari system. Captain Wu stared at the tactical display on his bridge and felt his heart sink. The Gorthak fleet was even bigger than they had expected. "Count all. Them," he ordered his tactical officer. Lieutenant Yoon worked quickly at her console. "Sir, I count 73 enemy ships. Most of them are heavy cruisers. At least 12 are battleships." Wu looked at the display showing his own fleet. 12 ships that had been exploration vessels just days ago. 12 ships carrying 300 humans who had volunteered to fight an impossible battle. "Sir," said Commander Jin over the communication system from her ship, "the UES Horizon. The Gorthak fleet is beginning orbital bombardment of Velkari Prime. They are targeting the major cities." Through the bridge windows, Wu could see the flashes of weapons fire in the distance. Each flash meant thousands of Velkari civilians dying. People who had done nothing wrong except live on a world that the Gorthak Empire wanted. "All ships, battle stations," Wu ordered. "Prepare for combat." On the planet below, Elder Hana watched the sky burn from her command bunker deep underground. The Gorthak had been bombing her world for 2 hours. Beautiful cities that had stood for thousands of years were turning to ash. "Elder," said Nex, his voice shaking. "The human ships have arrived." Hana looked at her tactical display. 12 small dots representing the human fleet. 73 larger dots showing the Gorthak Armada. 12 ships, she whispered. "They sent 12 ships against all of that." "Should we tell them to retreat?" asked Commander Wrath. "This is hopeless." Hana was quiet for a moment. Then she shook her head. "No. They came here to help us. The least we can do is trust them." Above the planet, Gorthak Commander Kazak was watching the human ships approach on his own displays. He had conquered 15 worlds in his career. He had faced desperate enemies before, but he had never seen anything quite like this. 12 ships? He said to his tactical officer. "They are sending 12 ships against my entire fleet?" "Yes, Commander. Should we dispatch a squadron to deal with them?" Kazak laughed. "No. Let them come. I want to see what these humans are planning. It should be amusing." On the bridge of the UES Unity, Captain Wu was studying the tactical situation with his officers. The Gorthak fleet was spread out in a standard bombardment formation. Most of their ships were focused on attacking the planet. Only a few were watching for threats from space. "They are not expecting much resistance," observed Commander Jin over the communication link. "Good," said Wu. "That gives us an advantage." Lieutenant Commander Jiho, who had transferred to Wu's ship as a tactical advisor, was analyzing the enemy formation. "Sir, look at this. They are using textbook military tactics, standard formations, predictable patterns." "What are you thinking, Jiho?" "I am thinking They have never fought an enemy that does not follow the same rules they do. Wu smiled grimly. He was beginning to understand what Jiho meant. The Gorthak Empire had conquered many worlds, but they had probably never faced an enemy quite like humanity. All ships, Wu said into his communicator. Listen carefully. We are not going to fight this battle the way they expect us to. On the UES Discovery, Captain Song was listening to Wu's battle plan with growing amazement. It was completely insane. It broke every rule of space combat that had ever been written. It might actually work. Sir, Song said over the communication. Link. Are you seriously suggesting we use our own ships as weapons? Not as weapons, Wu replied. As missiles. The plan was simple and terrifying. The human ships would split into 3 groups. The first group would attack the Gorthak fleet head-on, drawing their attention. The second group would swing around the planet and attack from behind. The third group would do something no military commander in galactic history had ever attempted. They would dive straight down into the planet's atmosphere and attack the Gorthak ships from below. Ships cannot fight effectively in atmosphere, protested Captain Lee of the UES Pathfinder. The air resistance will slow us down. Our weapons will be less accurate. Exactly, said Wu, which is why they will never expect it. And our ships were built for atmospheric entry. Theirs were not. Lieutenant Commander Jiho was working furiously at his console, calculating trajectories and weapon targeting solutions. Sir, if we time this right, we can hit them from 3 directions at once. They will not know which way to turn. What about the bombardment? Asked Commander Jin. Should we try to stop them from attacking the planet? Wu looked at the tactical display. Every second they delayed, more Velkari civilians died. But if they attacked too early without proper coordination, they would be destroyed uselessly. We have one chance at this, he said finally. If we mess it up, everyone dies. Velkari, and human both. On his flagship, Gorthak Commander Kazak was growing impatient. The human ships had been moving around the system for 20 minutes, but they had not attacked yet. What are they doing? He asked his tactical officer. Unknown, Commander. Their formation does not match any standard military doctrine in our databases. Are they trying to evacuate the planet? No, sir. They do not have enough ships for that. And they are not moving toward the population centers. Kazak frowned. In his experience, desperate enemies usually did one of 2 things. They either attacked immediately in a hopeless charge, or they tried to run away. These humans were doing neither. Keep monitoring them, he ordered, and continue the bombardment. But as the minutes passed, Kazak began to feel uneasy. The human ships were moving in patterns he did not understand. They were splitting up, regrouping, and splitting up again. It looked almost like they were dancing. Sir, his tactical officer said suddenly, the human ships are accelerating. All of them. Finally, Kazak said, prepare to receive their attack. This should not take long. He was wrong. The first group of human ships came in fast and straight, firing their railguns at maximum range. The kinetic projectiles moved so quickly they were almost impossible to track. When they hit the Gorthak ships, they punched through armor like it was paper. Return fire, Kazak ordered. Destroy those ships! But even as his fleet turned to face the human attack, the second group of human ships appeared behind them. More railgun fire, more holes punched in Gorthak hulls. We are taking damage on multiple ships, reported his tactical officer. These weapons are more powerful than expected. How many ships are attacking us? Kazak demanded. 8, sir. No, wait. 4 from the front, 4 from behind. Then where? Are the other 4? His question was answered a moment later when the UES Discovery, UES Pathfinder, UES Explorer, and UES Vanguard came screaming up out of the planet's atmosphere like avenging angels. The atmospheric attack group had used the planet's gravity to accelerate to incredible speeds. When they opened fire, their railguns had twice the normal impact velocity. Gorthak's ships that had withstood the first attacks were torn apart by the atmospheric group's assault. "Impossible!" Kazak shouted. "Ships cannot fight from within atmosphere." "Apparently. These can, sir," his tactical officer replied, his voice shaking. The human attack was unlike anything in Gorthak military experience. Instead of forming battle lines and trading shots at long range, the human ships were moving constantly. They fired, accelerated, changed direction, and fired again. They used the planet's gravity, its moons, even its asteroid belt to change their vectors in unpredictable ways. Worst of all, they seemed to have no regard for their own safety. When Gorthak's ships fired at them, the humans fired back even as they took damage. When their shields failed, they kept fighting. When their weapons overheated, they rammed enemy ships rather than retreat. "Sir," the tactical officer reported, "we have lost 12 ships. The humans have lost 3. Kazak could not believe what he was hearing. 12 of our ships against 3 of theirs? How is that possible? They are using tactics we have never encountered, sir, and their weapons are more effective than our intelligence suggested." On the bridge of the UES Unity, Captain Wu was coordinating the chaotic battle while trying to keep his ship in one piece. The Gorthak were finally starting to organize a proper response to the human attack, but they had lost the initiative. "Jiho," he called out over the noise of alarms and explosions. "How are we doing?" Lieutenant Commander Jiho was bleeding from a cut on his forehead, but he was still working at his console. "We have taken down 15 enemy ships, sir, but they are adapting to our tactics." "Then we need new tactics," Wu said grimly. He looked at the tactical display and made a decision. That would have gotten him court-martialed in any normal military situation. "All ships," he ordered. "New plan. We are going to ram the flagship." "Sir?" came Jin's voice over the communication link. "You heard me? All ships. Target the Gorthak flagship. Full ramming speed." In the depths of Velkari Prime, Elder Hana watched the battle on her screens with amazement and terror. The humans were fighting like nothing she had ever seen. They were outnumbered 5-1, but they were winning. "How are they doing this?" she asked Commander Wrath. Wrath shook his head in wonder. "I have no idea, Elder, but I think we are seeing why no one has ever conquered their homeworld." Above them, 12 human ships were about to teach the galaxy a lesson about what happened when you asked Earth's children for help. Captain Wu gripped his command chair as the UES Unity accelerated toward the massive Gorthak flagship. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically to keep the ship together as enemy fire pounded their shields. "Sir, shields at 30%, shouted Lieutenant Yoon over the noise of alarms. "Hull breach on deck 7, called out another officer. "Keep us on course," Wu ordered. "All power to forward shields." On his tactical display, he could see the other human ships following his lead. The UES Horizon was racing toward a Gorthak battleship, its hull smoking from enemy fire. The UES Discovery was spinning wildly to avoid missile strikes while maintaining its attack run. The UES Pathfinder had lost its main engines, but was still firing its railguns as it drifted toward its target. This was not how space battles were supposed to be fought. Every military academy in the galaxy taught the same basic principles. Keep your distance. Use superior firepower. Retreat when damaged. But the humans were doing the opposite of everything. They were getting closer instead of farther away. They were using damaged ships as weapons instead of retreating, and they were fighting harder the more desperate the situation became. On the Gorthak flagship, Commander Kazak watched in horror as the human ships bore down on his fleet like meteors. His tactical officer was shouting damage reports, but Kazak barely heard him. He was staring at the main display screen, watching something he had never seen in 20 years of military service. The human ships were not trying to win a traditional space battle. They were trying to cause as much damage as possible before they died, and they were willing to die to do it. "Sir!" his tactical officer screamed. "The lead human ship is on a collision course. Impact in 30 seconds. Evasive maneuvers," Kazak ordered. "Sir, we are too big to maneuver quickly. We cannot avoid them." Kazak felt something he had not felt since he was a young soldier. Fear. Real, cold fear. All weapons, target that ship. Destroy it before it reaches us. Every gun on the Gorthak. Flagship opened fire at once. Energy beams and missiles converged on the UES Unity like a storm of death. The human ship's shields collapsed instantly. Its hull began to glow red-hot as the armor melted under the concentrated fire. But it kept coming. On the bridge of the Unity, Captain Wu felt his ship dying around him. The lights flickered. The gravity failed. The air was filled with smoke and the smell of burning metal. "Sir," said Lieutenant Commander Jiho, his voice calm despite the chaos. "We have lost life support. Hull integrity is failing. We have maybe 2 minutes before the ship breaks apart." Wu nodded. "Then we better make those 2 minutes count. All hands, brace for impact." He opened a communication channel to the entire human fleet. "This is Captain Wu. It has been an honor serving with all of you. Give them hell." The UES Unity struck the Gorthak flagship at nearly 1/3 the speed of light. The explosion was visible from the surface of Velkari Prime. A new sun bloomed in space for just a moment, outshining the system's actual star. When the light faded, both ships were gone. But the battle was far from over. The death of their flagship threw the Gorthak fleet into confusion. Ships that had been following coordinated battle plans suddenly found themselves without orders. Some tried to retreat. Others continued attacking the planet. A few attempted to regroup and form new battle lines. The remaining human ships took advantage of the chaos. Commander Jin, now the senior human officer, took command of the fleet. Her ship, the UES Horizon, had lost its main weapons, but its engines still worked. She aimed it at a Gorthak cruiser and opened her communication channel. "All ships, this is Jin. Continue the attack. Make every shot count." The UES Discovery, commanded by Captain Song, had been badly damaged in the first minutes of the battle. Its hull was cracked, its life support was failing, and half its crew was dead or wounded. But its railguns still worked. Song aimed his ship at the largest cluster of enemy vessels and fired everything he had. The kinetic projectiles punched through 3 Gorthak ships in a single shot, like bullets through paper targets. "Take that," Song whispered, as his ship finally lost power and began to drift. Captain Lee of the UES Pathfinder was trying to protect the ships that were still fighting. Her vessel had lost its weapons early in the battle, but its shields were still partially functional. She positioned her ship between the UES Explorer and a group of attacking Gorthak fighters. "Explorer, this is Pathfinder," she radioed. "I will cover you. Make your shots count." The Gorthak fighters opened fire on the Pathfinder. Lee's ship shook under the impact, but she held position. Her shields collapsed, then her hull began to break apart. But she bought the Explorer the time it needed to destroy the fighters. "Pathfinder is down," Lee reported calmly as her ship lost power. "Explorer, you are clear to engage." On the surface of Velkari Prime, Elder Hana watched the battle with tears streaming down her face. The humans were dying to save her people. Ships were exploding one by one, taking their brave crews with them. But with each human ship that died, they took 2 or 3 Gorthak vessels with them. "Elder," said Nex, his voice filled with awe. "The bombardment has stopped. The humans have forced the Gorthak to focus on the space battle." Hana looked at her displays. For the first time in hours, Gorthak ships were not firing on her cities. The human sacrifice was working. Her people had a chance to evacuate, a chance to survive. "Send every transport we have to the major cities," she ordered. "Get our people to the shelters. The humans are buying us time with their lives." In space, the battle had become a nightmare for the Gorthak. They had superior numbers and better technology, but the humans kept doing things that made no sense. When their ships were damaged, they rammed enemy vessels. When they ran out of ammunition, they used their ships as kinetic weapons. When they were outnumbered, they fought harder instead of retreating. Worst of all, the humans seemed to get more dangerous as they took losses. Each time a human ship was destroyed, the remaining ships fought with greater fury. It was as if the death of their comrades made them stronger instead of weaker. Commander Kazak, who had escaped his flagship's destruction in an escape pod, was picked up by another Gorthak ship. When he reached the bridge, he found his officers in a state of panic. "Sir," reported the ship's captain, "we have lost 37 ships. The humans still have 6 vessels operational." 6 ships? Kazak could not believe it. They started with 12. How have 6 ships destroyed 37 of ours? "Sir, they are not fighting like any enemy we have ever encountered. They seem to prefer dying in combat to living in defeat." Kazak stared at the tactical display. The 6 remaining human ships were still attacking, still causing damage, still refusing to retreat. Their hulls were cracked, their weapons were overheating, and their crews were probably dying from radiation and oxygen loss. But they kept fighting. "What kind of species are these humans?" he whispered. His question was answered by the UES Vanguard, which had been heavily damaged but was still operational. Captain Park, its commander, had lost most of his crew and was running the ship almost single-handedly. But when he saw a group of Gorthak ships moving to resume the bombardment of Velkari Prime, he did not hesitate. "This is the Vanguard," he radioed to the remaining human ships. "I am going to ram those bombardment ships. Cover me." The Vanguard, its hull glowing from internal fires, accelerated toward the enemy formation. Gorthak ships tried to intercept it, but the other human vessels provided covering fire. Railgun projectiles streaked through space, keeping the enemy busy while Park made his final run. The Vanguard struck the lead bombardment ship, and both vessels exploded in a ball of fire. The explosion was so large it damaged 3 other Gorthak ships nearby. Commander Kazak watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by an enemy that should have been crushed in the first 5 minutes of combat. For the first time in his career, he gave an order he had never thought he would give. "All ships, retreat! Get us out of this system!" "Sir?" his tactical officer asked in disbelief. "Retreat from 6 damaged ships?" "Those are not just ships," Kazak said quietly. "Those are humans, and humans do not know how to quit. The surviving." Gorthak vessels began to withdraw from the Velkari system. Behind them, 5 human ships hung in space like broken toys. They were barely functional, their crews were wounded or dead, and their weapons were exhausted. But they had won. On Velkari Prime, Elder Hana looked up at the sky and saw something she had not seen in months. Stars. Not the flash of weapons fire or the glow of burning cities. Just stars. "The bombardment has stopped," Commander Rath reported. "The Gorthak fleet is retreating." Hana felt her legs give way and she sank into her chair. "It is over?" "Yes, Elder. The humans won. 5 ships against 73, and somehow, impossibly, the humans had won. The silence in space was broken only by the crackling of damaged communication systems. 5 human ships drifted among the wreckage of what had been the most powerful fleet in this sector of the galaxy. Chunks of metal and debris floated everywhere, the remains of both human and Gorthak vessels. Commander Jin sat in the captain's chair of the UES Horizon, staring at the tactical display that showed the Gorthak fleet retreating. Her ship was barely holding together. The hull was cracked in dozens of places. The life support systems were failing. Half her crew was dead, but they had won. "Commander," said Lieutenant Park, her communications officer. His voice was weak from blood loss, but he was still at his station. "We are receiving a transmission from the planet. The Velkari want to speak with us." Jin nodded slowly. Everything hurt. She was pretty sure she had at least 3 broken ribs and a concussion. But she was alive, and so were some of her people. "Put them through," she said. The main screen flickered to life, showing the face of Elder Hana. The Velkari leader looked tired and scared, but there was something else in her large, dark eyes. Hope. Human commander, Hana said, her voice shaking with emotion. I do not know how to thank you. You saved our entire civilization. Jin tried to sit up straighter, but pain shot through her chest. We did what anyone should do when someone asks for help. No, Hana said firmly. What you did was impossible. 12 ships against 73. You should have all died in the first few minutes. 7 ships did die, Jin said quietly. She looked at the casualty reports on her screen. 210 human lives lost. People who had volunteered for this mission knowing they might never come home. Good people. Brave people. They will be remembered forever, Hana promised. Every Velkari child will learn their names. Every family on every world in our system will honor their sacrifice. Jin felt tears running down her face. She had not cried since she was a child, but seeing the gratitude in Hana's eyes broke something inside her. Elder Hana, she said, we need help. Our ships are badly damaged. We have wounded crew members who need medical attention. Of course, Hana said immediately. We are sending every medical ship we have. Our best doctors are already preparing to treat your wounded. Thank you. Commander, there is something else. Our long-range sensors show more ships approaching the system. They will arrive in about 6 hours. Jin felt her heart sink. More Gorthak? No, Hana said, and for the first time since the conversation began, she smiled. The identification. Signals say they are from Earth. 2 hours later, the first Velkari medical ships reached the human fleet. Elder Hana herself came aboard the UES Horizon in a small transport craft. She wanted to meet the humans face to face. When the airlock opened and Hana stepped onto the human ship, she was not prepared for what she saw. The corridors were filled with smoke. The walls were blackened from fires. There were holes in the hull that had been hastily patched with metal plates. But the humans were still working. Injured crew members were helping to repair systems. People with broken arms were carrying supplies. A man with burns covering half his face was welding a crack in a bulkhead. Your people, Hana said to Jin as they walked toward the medical bay. They should be resting. They should be recovering from their injuries. This is how we recover, Jin explained. We work. We fix things. We help each other. In the medical bay, Hana met Dr. Chen, the ship's medical officer. He was treating a young woman whose leg had been crushed when a beam fell on her during the battle. Will she be okay? Hana asked. Dr. Chen looked up from his patient. She will live. She might walk with a limp for the rest of her life. But she will live. The young woman, who was conscious despite her injuries, looked up at Hana. Ma'am, are the Velkari people safe? Yes, Hana said, her voice thick with emotion. Thanks to you and your shipmates, they are safe. The woman smiled and closed her eyes. Good. That is what matters. Hana stared at her in amazement. This human was badly injured, probably in constant pain, and the first thing she asked about was whether the Velkari were safe. I do not understand your species, Hana said to Jin. What do you mean? You came here to help people you had never met. You risked everything for strangers, and now, even wounded and far from home, you still care more about our safety than your own comfort. Jin was quiet for a moment. Elder Hana, can I ask you something? Of course. If you received a message from a world under attack, what would you do? Hana thought about it. If we had the power to help, we would try. But we would also think about the risks. We would debate whether it was wise to get involved. That is the difference between us, Jin said. When we heard your message, we did not debate whether it was wise. We only asked whether it was right. 6 hours later, the second human fleet arrived in the Velkari system. But these were not warships. They were hospital ships, supply vessels, and engineering platforms. Earth had sent everything they could to help their people and the Velkari. President Inho himself was aboard the lead ship, a massive hospital vessel called the UES Mercy. When he saw the condition of the surviving human ships, he immediately ordered the evacuation of all wounded personnel, but many of the humans refused to leave. "Their posts!" "Sir," Captain Song said to the president when he came aboard the UES Discovery. Song's ship was probably beyond repair, but he was still trying to fix it. "My ship might look bad, but she is still space-worthy. We can make it home." President Inho looked around the bridge of the Discovery. Every surface was damaged. The air smelled like burned electronics and melted plastic. Half the crew was bandaged or in medical braces. "Captain, your ship is held together with emergency patches and prayer. You need to transfer to one of the hospital ships." "With respect, sir, this is my ship, my crew. We brought her this far. We will take her home." President Inho studied Song's face. The captain was exhausted, injured, and probably running on pure stubbornness. But there was something in his eyes that reminded the president why he had sent these people to fight an impossible battle. "Very well, Captain. But you will accept engineering support and medical staff." "Thank you, sir." As the rescue operations continued, President Inho met with Elder Hana on the surface of Velkari Prime. They stood in what had been the capital city's main square. Many of the buildings were damaged from the Gorthak bombardment, but Velkari families were already starting to return to their homes. "Your people saved us," Hana said, "but they paid a terrible price." President Inho nodded. 210 people, each one a volunteer, each one knowing the risks. "Why?" Hana asked. "Why did they do it?" "Because it was the right thing to do." "But you barely knew we existed. You had never met us. You had no obligation to help us." President Inho watched a group of Velkari children playing in the rubble of a bombed building. They were laughing and chasing each other, alive because humans had chosen to fight and die for them. "Elder Hana, do you have children?" "Yes, 2 daughters. And if someone was trying to hurt them, would you fight to protect them?" "Of course." That is how we feel about all children, all innocent people. It does not matter if they are human or Velkari or any other species. When someone asks for help, we answer. Hana was quiet for a long time. "Your species is very strange." "How so?" "Most civilizations become more careful as they become more powerful. They think more about costs and benefits. They worry about making enemies. But you became more powerful and decided to protect everyone." President Inho smiled. "Maybe that is why we became powerful in the first place." Later that day, Dr. Mira arrived on one of the hospital ships. She had spent the journey learning more of the Velkari language and studying their culture. When she met with Elder Hana, she had a proposal. "We would like to establish a permanent embassy here," she said. "Not to control or influence your people, but to learn from each other." "What would you want in return?" Hana asked. "Nothing," Dr. Mira said. "Friendship, if you are willing to offer it. Trade, if it benefits both our peoples. But we do not want to conquer you or rule you." Hana stared at her. "You are serious. You really want nothing except friendship." "That is correct. But you just saved our entire civilization. Surely that earns you some kind of claim on our worlds." Dr. Mira shook her head. "Saving your people was not a business transaction, Elder Hana. We did not do it to earn rewards. We did it because it was the right thing to do." As the sun set over Velkari Prime, Elder Hana stood in her garden looking up at the stars. For the first time in months, she was not afraid of what might come from space. The humans had changed everything, not just by saving her people, but by showing the galaxy that there was another way to be powerful. A way that protected instead of conquered. A way that answered calls for help instead of ignoring them. Next, she called to her assistant, who was helping coordinate the relief efforts. Yes, Elder? Send a message to every world in our sector. Tell them what happened here. Tell them about the humans. What should I tell them? Hana smiled as she watched human and Velkari medical teams working together to treat the wounded. Tell them that when someone asks for help, the humans answer, and tell them that the galaxy just became a much safer place. The news of humanity's victory at Velkari Prime spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within 3 days, every major civilization had heard the impossible story. A primitive species with 12 ships had defeated the mighty Gorthak Empire and saved an entire world. Most of them did not believe it at first. Supreme Chancellor Vel of the Hegemony of Advanced Worlds sat in his crystal palace on the planet Zentros, reading the intelligence reports with growing disbelief. The Hegemony was the most powerful collection of civilizations in the galaxy. They had ruled over thousands of worlds for 10,000 years. This cannot be accurate, Vel said to his intelligence minister. 12 ships cannot defeat 73. It is mathematically impossible. The reports have been verified by 17 different sources, Supreme Chancellor, replied Minister Kex. The humans really did destroy the Gorthak fleet. Vel stood up and walked to the great window that looked out over his capital city. Millions of beings from dozens of species lived and worked in the towers below. All of them accepted hegemony, rule because the hegemony was strong, the strongest force in known space. But if these humans could defeat the Gorthak Empire with just 12 ships, how strong were they really? What do we know about this human homeworld? Vel asked. It is called Earth. It is located in a remote sector that we have never bothered to explore. According to our old surveys, the inhabitants were barely space-capable. Barely space-capable species do not build weapons that can punch through Gorthak armor, Vel said coldly. Find out everything you can about these humans, their technology, their military, their weaknesses. Yes, Supreme Chancellor. Should we send a diplomatic mission? Vel was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, but it was not a pleasant smile. No. Send a fleet. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Inho was dealing with the aftermath of humanity's first interstellar war. The victory at Velkari Prime had made humans heroes across the galaxy, but it had also made them a target. Sir, said General Tay, entering the presidential office with a stack of reports. We are receiving messages from civilizations we have never heard of. Some want to establish trade agreements. Others are asking for military assistance. President Inho looked through the reports. Requests for help were coming from dozens of worlds. Pirates attacking trade routes, aggressive neighbors threatening small colonies, corrupt governments oppressing their own people. They all want us to fight their battles for them, he observed. Yes, sir. It seems our reputation has spread. What about Earth's defenses? Are we ready if someone decides we are a threat? Admiral Suna, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. Sir, we are building ships as fast as we can. But if a major power like the Hegemony decides to attack us, we will be in trouble. How much trouble? The Hegemony has over 5,000 warships, sir. We have 23. President Inho felt a chill. At Valkyrie Prime, they had faced overwhelming odds and won through surprise and determination. But the galaxy was now aware of human capabilities. Next time, their enemies would be prepared. "Double our shipbuilding efforts," he ordered, "and send messages to every world that helped us or offered to help us. We need allies." "Sir," said Dr. Mira, who had returned to Earth the day before, "there is something else you should know. The Valkyrie are not the only species asking for our protection." She activated a holographic display showing a map of local space. Dozens of small civilizations were highlighted in blue. "These are all the species that have contacted us since Valkyrie Prime," she explained. "Most of them are peaceful worlds that have been threatened by larger powers. They want to know if we will help them like we helped the Valkyrie." "And what did you tell them?" "That we would consider each case individually." "But, sir, I think we need to be careful. If we say yes to everyone, we could find ourselves fighting wars across the entire galaxy." President Inho studied the map. Each blue dot represented millions or billions of people who were asking for Earth's protection. People who were afraid and desperate, just like the Valkyrie had been. "We cannot ignore people who need help," he said finally. "But you are right. We need to be smart about this." 3 days later, the decision was made for him. A massive fleet appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system. 200 ships, each one larger and more powerful than anything humanity had ever built. At the head of the fleet was a dreadnought the size of a small moon. The hegemony had come to Earth. "Sir," said Admiral Suna, rushing into the president's office, "long-range sensors have detected the hegemony fleet. They will reach Earth in 6 hours. President Inho felt his blood run cold. "Are they responding to our communications?" "Yes, sir. They are demanding that Earth submit to hegemony authority immediately. And if we refuse?" Admiral Suna's face was grim. "They will demonstrate why refusal is not an option." President Inho looked out his office window at the peaceful city below. Children were playing in parks. People were going to work. Families were having dinner together, all of them unaware that the most powerful force in the galaxy was coming to conquer their world. "Get me Commander Jin," he ordered. Jin was still recovering from her injuries at Valkyrie Prime, but she came to the president's office as quickly as she could. Her arm was in a sling and she walked with a limp, but her eyes were clear and determined. "Jin," the president said, "I need to ask something of you. Something that might be even more dangerous than Valkyrie Prime." "What do you need, sir?" "The hegemony is coming. 200 ships. They want us to surrender." Jin was quiet for a moment. "What are our options?" "We can surrender and hope they treat us well. We can fight and probably lose. Or we can try something that has never been attempted before." "Which is?" President Inho activated the holographic display Dr. Mira had shown him earlier. But now, instead of blue dots, many of the small civilizations were highlighted in green. 47 species have offered to help us if we are attacked, he explained. Most of them only have a few ships each. Together they might have 300 vessels. Against 200 hegemony ships? Jin shook her head. Sir, those species are not military powers. Their ships are not designed for war. Neither were ours, President Inho reminded her. But we found a way to make them work. Jin stared at the display for a long time. Then she looked up at the president. You want to create an alliance, not just for this battle, but permanently. Yes, a coalition of small worlds that protect each other, with Earth providing military leadership and coordination. The hegemony will never allow it. They rule through fear and intimidation. If small worlds start working together, it threatens their entire system. Which is exactly why we have to try, President Inho said. If we let them crush us now, every species that offered to help us will know that resistance is hopeless. Jin nodded slowly. When do we start? Now. Send messages to every world that offered assistance. Tell them the time has come to stand. Together. And if they refuse, then we face the hegemony alone. But I do not think they will refuse. I think they are tired of being afraid. Within 2 hours, ships began arriving in Earth's solar system. Not many at first. A few exploration vessels from a nearby mining colony. Some converted freighters from a peaceful trading world. A handful of patrol boats from a small research station. But they kept coming. The Raylan sent their entire defense. Fleet, 8 ships. The Korthans contributed 12 converted cargo haulers. The Zitari brought 6 fast scout ships. Species that had never worked together before were suddenly flying in formation, following human tactical instructions. By the time the hegemony fleet reached Earth, they found something they had never expected. Instead of one isolated world with 23 ships, they faced a coalition of 48 species with over 400 vessels. Supreme Chancellor Vel stared at the tactical display on his flagship with growing anger. This was not what his intelligence reports had described. Earth was supposed to be alone and vulnerable. What are all these ships? He demanded. Sir, replied his tactical officer, it appears the humans have formed some kind of alliance. We are detecting ships from dozens of different species. Impossible. Small worlds do not work together. They are too afraid, too weak, too selfish. Apparently, not anymore, sir. Vel opened a communication channel to the human fleet. The face that appeared on his screen was that of Commander Jin, still wearing her medical arm sling, but sitting straight in her command chair. I am Supreme Chancellor Vel of the Hegemony of Advanced Worlds, he announced. You will surrender immediately and submit to proper galactic authority. Jin looked at him calmly. This is Commander Jin of the Terran Coalition. We respectfully decline your offer. Offer? Vel laughed harshly. This is not an offer. This is a command. You will surrender or be destroyed. We have heard that before, Jin said. At Velkari Prime. It did not work out well for the people who said it. Vel felt his anger growing. You defeated a minor military force through luck and surprise. We are the hegemony. We have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. Then maybe it is time for a change, Jin replied. Behind her, Vel could see officers from different species working together at various stations. Humans, Velkari, and dozens of others he did not recognize. They looked determined, not afraid. The two fleets faced each other in the space above Earth. On one side, the massive Hegemony Armada, 200 warships that had conquered countless worlds. On the other side, a collection of small ships from 48 different species, most of them never designed for war. Commander Jin stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, the newest and most advanced ship in the human fleet. Around her, officers from a dozen different species worked together at the control stations. Lieutenant Commander Jiho was at Tactical. A Velkari engineer named Ren was managing the power systems. A Raylan pilot was coordinating the fighter squadrons. "All ships report ready," announced Lieutenant Yoon from the communications station. Jin looked at the tactical display. 400 ships against 200. It should have been an advantage, but she knew better. The Hegemony ships were larger, stronger, and armed with weapons that could destroy planets. "Open a channel to all coalition ships," she ordered. When the channel was active, Jin spoke to the hundreds of captains and crews who had chosen to stand with humanity. "Today we fight not just for Earth, but for the right of all species to live free from fear," she said. "The Hegemony has ruled through strength and intimidation for 10,000 years. They expect us to run when faced with their power. They expect us to surrender rather than fight." She paused, looking around at the mixed crew on her bridge. "They do not understand that some things are worth fighting for, even when the odds are against us. They do not understand that when people stand together, they become stronger than the sum of their parts." On the Hegemony flagship, Supreme Chancellor, Vel listened to Jin's speech with contempt. "Inspirational words," he said to his officers, "but words do not stop plasma cannons." "Sir," said his tactical officer, "the rebel fleet is moving into attack formation." Vel studied the enemy formation with surprise. Instead of the chaotic arrangement he expected from an alliance of different species, the coalition ships were moving with perfect coordination. Human vessels were taking point positions using their proven railgun technology. Velkari ships were providing electronic warfare support. The other species were arranged in supporting roles that played to their strengths. "They actually know what they are doing," he muttered. "Sir, nothing. Begin the attack. Target the human ships first. Once their leadership is destroyed, the others will scatter." The Hegemony fleet opened fire with weapons that could level cities. Beams of pure energy lanced across space toward the coalition ships. But instead of meeting their targets, most of the shots struck empty space. The coalition fleet was moving, not just forward or backward, but in complex three-dimensional patterns that made them almost impossible to hit. Ships dove and climbed and rolled in formations that seemed impossible. It was like watching a dance performed by hundreds of dancers, each one knowing exactly where the others would be. "How are they coordinating like that?" Vel demanded. "That level of tactical control requires years of training together." His tactical officer was studying the sensor readings. "Sir, I think the humans are providing real-time coordination to all the other ships. Their computers are calculating movement patterns for the entire fleet." "Impossible! No species shares tactical control with aliens." "Apparently humans do, sir. The first wave of coalition ships reached the hegemony battle line, and the space around Earth became a storm of weapons fire. But this was not like the battle at Valkyrie Prime. This time, humanity was not fighting alone. When hegemony ships targeted the human vessels, Valkyrie ships jammed their sensors. When the enemy tried to outflank the main force, Raylan fighters swarmed their heavy cruisers. When hegemony battleships concentrated their fire, converted freighters from a dozen species used kamikaze runs to break up their formations. Status. "Report!" Vel shouted over the noise of alarms on his bridge. "We have lost 18 ships, sir. The enemy has lost 32. 32 out of 400. That is barely a dent in their numbers." "Yes, sir. But they are fighting like they did at Valkyrie Prime. They seem to get more determined as they take losses." Vel watched the tactical display in growing frustration. His fleet should have crushed this rabble in the first 10 minutes. Instead, they were locked in a grinding battle with an enemy that refused to break. "Sir," said his communications officer, "we are receiving a transmission from the enemy fleet." "Put it through." Commander Jin's face appeared on the main screen. Behind her, Vel could see smoke and damage, but her expression was calm and determined. "Supreme Chancellor Vel," she said, "I am offering you one chance to withdraw from this system." Vel laughed harshly. "You are losing this battle, human. Your ships are being destroyed." "Yes," Jin agreed. "People are dying. Good people who volunteered to fight for something they believe in. But your ships are dying too. And the difference is, we knew this would be hard. You expected it to be easy. What is your point?" "My point is that we are prepared to lose every ship in this fleet if necessary. Are you prepared to lose yours?" Vel stared at her. "You are bluffing." "Am I?" Jin gestured to the tactical display behind her. "Look at your losses, Chancellor. Look at how we are fighting. Does this look like an enemy that will surrender?" Vel looked at his own tactical display. His fleet had lost 43 ships. The enemy had lost nearly 80. But the remaining coalition ships were still fighting with the same intensity as when the battle began. "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "at current loss rates, we will win. But we will lose over half our fleet." "Half our fleet to defeat a collection of primitive worlds?" "Yes, sir." Vel felt something he had not felt in decades. Uncertainty. The hegemony maintained control through the appearance of invincible strength. If word spread that they had lost half their fleet to defeat a coalition of small worlds, other sectors might start to rebel. "Continue the attack," he ordered, but his voice lacked conviction. The battle raged for another hour. Hegemony ships fell to swarms of smaller vessels. Coalition ships died under the fire of superior weapons. But slowly, a pattern emerged. The hegemony was winning, but they were paying a price they had never expected to pay. "Sir," the tactical officer reported, "we have destroyed 150 enemy ships, but we have lost 91 of our own." Vel stared at the numbers. 91 ships out of 200. Nearly half his fleet gone, and the remaining coalition ships were still fighting. "How many ships does the enemy have left?" "Approximately 250, sir." "They still outnumber us?" Yes, sir. And, sir, there is something else. Long-range sensors are detecting more ships approaching the system. More hegemony reinforcements? No, sir. The identification codes match species from the outer rim. It looks like more worlds are joining the coalition. Vel felt his heart sink. Instead of intimidating the galaxy into submission, this battle was inspiring more rebellions. Every minute the fight continued, more species were deciding that the hegemony could be challenged. "Sir," came Jin's voice over the communication system, "I am renewing my offer. Withdraw now, and this ends here. And if I refuse, then we keep fighting until one of us has no ships left." Vel looked around his bridge at the faces of his officers. They were loyal, but he could see doubt in their eyes. They had expected an easy victory, not a brutal fight that was costing them everything. "What are your terms?" he asked finally. "Simple," Jin replied. "The hegemony acknowledges the right of worlds to choose their own government. You stop expanding into sectors inhabited by species that do not want your rule, and you leave Earth and our allies alone. And in return, we do not come looking for you." It was not a threat. It was a promise. And Vel suddenly realized that these humans and their allies were not going to be content with defending themselves. If this war continued, they would eventually bring the fight to hegemony worlds. "I need to consult with my council," Vel said. "You have 1 hour," Jin replied, and closed the communication channel. Vel sat in his command chair, staring at the tactical display. Around him, his officers waited for orders. Outside, the two fleets had stopped firing and were maintaining their positions. For 10,000 years, the hegemony had been the ultimate power in the galaxy. They had never retreated. They had never compromised. They had never admitted that any force could challenge them. But they had never faced humans before. "Signal the fleet," Vel said finally. "We are withdrawing." "Sir?" his tactical officer asked in disbelief. "You heard me. We are leaving this system." As the hegemony fleet began to withdraw, a cheer went up from the coalition ships. They had done the impossible. They had faced the most powerful force in the galaxy and forced it to back down. But Commander Jin was not celebrating yet. She opened a communication channel to all the coalition ships. "This is not over," she said. "Today we proved that the hegemony can be challenged. Tomorrow other worlds will remember that. We need to be ready to help them when they ask." 6 months later, President Inho stood in the newly built Terran Coalition headquarters orbiting Earth. Through the great windows, he could see ships from dozens of species coming and going. Trade vessels, diplomatic transports, and patrol ships flying together under the Coalition flag. "Sir," said Admiral Suna, entering his office with the latest reports, "we now have formal treaties with over 200 worlds. The Coalition fleet has grown to 1,500 ships.